Welcome back to this, already the final segment of today's Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Glad to have on my good friend Lee Kaplan. He's a regular on this program. He's also with the firm Spicer, Kaplan and Veselka, a phenomenal law firm, and their website is skv.com. And Lee is really brings interesting perspectives of what's happening out there in areas ranging from public policy to, of course, to the law, being an attorney, and much, much more. Lee, before we get started on our topics today, tell us a little bit more about SKV.
Well, we're a trial firm, and we have an extensive civil practice other than family law, and we have a white-collar criminal practice, and we're in all the courts, federal and state, civil and criminal. Most of our cases are in Texas or Louisiana, but we have cases in other parts of the country as well.
Yeah, very,
we
very.
represent everybody from individuals to Fortune 10 corporations on both sides of the docket.
We're
a little
go.
unusual in that regard.
Yeah, so you're both involved as a plaintiff and a defendant, and depending on the case.
That's right. It comes out of perhaps some of us grew up, we were in high school debate, and we were used to being able to argue on either side. You know, there are many firms that generally are just on the plaintiff side or just on the defendant side of the docket. We have a little different perspective about that. It's just what's the case about and who is at fault or who has a valid claim.
Yeah, very good. Speaking of cases, you had a big one recently get settled. Talk a little bit about that.
Well,
actually winning.
We recently had a trial, and while some of it settled, some of it went to trial, and we obtained a jury verdict against 2 defendants. This was a trade secrets case. It involved some people who worked for my client, Quant Lab, which is a company in Houston, and they left and took some secrets, and they weren't honest about it, and they sought and found some investors as well. We settled with some defendants and have judgments against them, and we obtained a verdict against 2 defendants. One was a former employee researcher who took some secrets, and the other was an attorney investor who helped set up the company which was using these secrets. And we have a multi-million-dollar verdict. We have an injunction. We have motions for entry of judgment, and then there'll be an attorney's fee award, I expect, in that case. And whether it's appealed or not, I don't know. But, you know, the lesson of that case, there are many lessons from it, but one is people should be punctilious and careful about not leaving with their employer's trade secrets. And the second one is that when you're in the discovery process, you can't cheat. And frankly, the 2 defendants against whom we ultimately went to trial were people who were found not to have played by the rules on discovery. And that led to some consequences for them in the form of partial summary judgments on liability against them before we even got to the jury trial.
Interesting. Well, congratulations on that. Well, another thing you wanted to talk about was the issue of copyrights in photos. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, this is kind of interesting, and I have a client to whom this happened just recently. This is someone who has a publication, but it could be off any website. If you take a picture from some place on the Internet and post it on your website, you need to make sure that you have permission to do that or that it is something that's posted there for anybody to take. Otherwise, the Copyright Act can get in the way, and it can be very expensive, particularly if someone has registered a copyright for a given photograph. You know, a lot of times people will take a stock photo and they'll put it on their website. Well, I learned, because this client got a demand, there are companies out there who actually buy up photographs. They buy stock photographs, they register a copyright, and then they troll the Internet with these sophisticated machines that will look to see if that photograph is anywhere. In this case, they found that photograph not on the active website of this client, but a cached version of the website, and made a demand for thousands of dollars saying that you had our photograph on your website. Now, we resolved this for a nuisance amount because it's something that was cached, but still, it's a hassle. And this is somebody who got contacted. One of their employees had innocently, not knowing about the copyright laws, downloaded a stock photograph of someone wearing a dress, some kind of fashion model, and put it in something that was published on the website, and as a result, they got a demand letter. And you never know for sure whether these people will pursue it if you tell them to go jump in a lake, but they could, and usually it's easier to settle for some nuisance amount and get some sort of a license for all past activities and then not use it anymore. But that's something to look out for. And people do it all the time, innocently. But now, as the search engines have become more sophisticated and the ability to troll the internet and look for violations, you have people making money off innocent activities.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous, and there are statutory damages and attorney's fees, and so you're at the mercy of somebody if you download an image from the internet that is copyrighted.
Yeah, it sounds extremely dicey, to say the least. And so, and what brought this to your attention? Was it the fact that one of your own clients got hit by this?
Right. I got a call from somebody. They had gotten this demand letter, and so now I had to start negotiating with the other side. And I could have told them to jump in the lake, but unless you know a whole lot more about them, you don't know for sure whether they will actually file a lawsuit or not. I mean, your first reaction is to make sure you remove the offending photo from your website, or in this case, try to get it off the internet, your cached website, and that can be very hard to do. And so that costs you some money. And then you negotiate with these people, and maybe you can buy them off for a few $100s or a few thousand, depending on how useful it was to you. But they target medium to small businesses, and they'll target even charities. I mean, they don't. There's no. I don't know what the right word is. I won't say honor among thieves because they own the copyright. But it's one of those gotchas that are out there.
It's pretty heartless. However you want to look at it.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, the first reaction of my client is, "You've got to be kidding! This is outrageous."
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Said, "You're right. It is outrageous."
And you're expecting to see more of it.
Well, it's easier. It gets easier all the time, and people are very attuned now to exercising their rights. That ranges from recording artists who are demanding royalties. For example, Sirius XM just paid, I think, $210 million to settle claims by artists who had songs that were recorded before 1972, and they weren't officially protected by the Copyright Act. And these people sued and claimed this is my intellectual property. And everybody's heard, I think, about Taylor Swift taking on Apple. Apple was going to offer some music streaming service for 3 months for free on a trial basis to try to drum up demand. And she became angry. She said, "Look, you're offering my stuff for free for 3 months, and on behalf of myself and all the other artists whose music you're offering for free for 3 months, that's wrong. You want to offer things for free, do it. But you still have to pay us for using our works." And, the initial answer would have been, well, we're not collecting any money, so we're not paying you any royalties. And of course, their observation was, wait a minute, you're doing this for a business reason, and we ought to get something, and they caved. And I think they did the right thing, not just for public relations, but for somebody's rights.
Yeah, and maybe for their own bottom line. I'm not sure if I'd want to go to battle with Taylor Swift.
Well, right. I mean, this was a PR disaster for Apple, or a potential PR disaster in the making. But the bottom line is, just because something's on the internet doesn't mean it's public in the sense of you can use it. I mean, it's just like you can't lift an article from the Houston Chronicle and say it was on the internet because they have a copyright on that. And there is a doctrine called fair use. You can take snippets from it, but you can't just copy the article and use it.
Yeah.
And that's no different from a photograph or music or other things that may be somewhere on the internet.
Yeah. Well, that's a good, I think, a good warning for individuals out there to think twice before they do something. And
it's one of these very unfair things to innocent business people who probably, some employee did something and they didn't even know it. And then it comes to bite them later.
Yeah. Yep. So. Gotta enter at your own risk. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I did want to get out of curiosity because I love talking to you a little bit about what's happening on the political front. Have you been watching the GOP performances?
Well, you can't avoid it.
Yeah, I know.
It's somewhere between a space launch and a train wreck. As best I can tell, half the candidates think somebody's going to hell if they don't believe exactly the way they do. You've got Donald Trump, who's, kind of out of control. I actually thought the most interesting comment by anybody in either debate, and I really watched only snippets of them, but John Kasich said, I didn't like the gay marriage ruling, but the Supreme Court has ruled and it's the law. And that was so refreshing to say to see somebody say, the Supreme Court is the supreme arbiter. I don't like it, but we're going to follow the law, as opposed to massive resistance where you see Democrats arguing about Citizens United and how they're going to overturn it somehow, or the old war on the Supreme Court over desegregation years ago, or people now arguing that, we need to pack the Supreme Court because they didn't rule the right way on King versus Burwell, the case over Obamacare.
Yeah.
I just, that's dangerous for the country when everybody's thinking about how do we blow off the Supreme Court. So I thought John Kasich was pretty impressive just for saying something that wasn't politically correct in that group.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. And I think that among the mainstream media, he got the highest ratings of the evening, of the evening debaters. Carly Fiorina, everyone, including conservatives. It seemed like she was universally applauded for her presentation. I thought she was amazing, actually.
Right. Well, she's a pretty straightforward person. She may not have been that successful when she was at HP, although most people now think that things she did at HP were necessary. But it's going to be an interesting year, or at least 6 or 9 months, to see how it all shakes out.
Well, she came in at
HP. Hillary's competing to move to the left, and many of these people in the Republican side are competing to move to the right. I doubt seriously that Carly Fiorina cared too much about abortion until she got in these debates. I doubt that Donald Trump cared about abortion. Given his, shall we say, stormy marital history, I find it amusing to see him leading the pack in the Republican Party, which has so many social issues conservatives.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it just kind of shows you the extent of the frustration they have. I think that there's just a huge amount of sense of feeling voiceless or powerless among the conservative rank and file, that they would be attracted to. It's almost like he is, and I'm not speaking for me because I'm not a Trump fan by any stretch of the imagination, but for those who have been attracted to him that normally wouldn't, it's almost like he is our bully. We feel like we've been bullied by the media, bullied by both parties, institutionally by both parties, and now he's talking back at them. And if you attack him, you are essentially attacking us. Does that seem logical at all to you?
I think there's a lot to that. It's just frustration. It's sort of a let's blow up the system because these politicians are doing a bad job. I mean, Donald Trump is oafish. He's belligerent. He's obnoxious and overbearing. But who's he being mostly belligerent and obnoxious and overbearing to? Other than Megyn Kelly, it's other candidates and politicians. So,
and really, a lot of
we like that.
And really, a lot of the institutions and the media that rank and file conservatives hate both. They really do. And so that's, I'm just shocked at how it's really like a tidal wave of support. And it seems like the more you attack him, the more his numbers go up.
Well, that's right, because the more the media says he's going to fail and flail around, the more people say, oh, I'll show them. I mean, it's just, it's almost reminiscent of Harry Truman beating Dewey, because everybody knew Harry Truman was going to get beat. And people just said, wait a minute, I'm an individual. I still have a role in this, and I'm going to show them.
Yep.
And so,
no question about
Bernie Sanders, that guy's, his nostrums for the economy would run the country into the ground. And yet he's attracting larger crowds than anybody.
Yeah, in fact, his
it's a
numbers...
way of telling Washington you're not making anything work.
He is getting about 10 times as many people per event than Hillary Clinton is. It's shocking.
Right. And so her reaction to that is, let's spend $1/3 trillion on making college affordable.
Yeah.
Wow. That's almost half the size of the stimulus plan. So it's a pretty astounding amount of money.
Pretty interesting to watch, isn't it? And it's hard not to be disgusted with both parties, frankly.
Yeah, because she knows that doesn't have a prayer of passing anywhere.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And those are the easiest things.
I'm waiting for somebody to propose things that might actually happen.
And those are the easiest things to support, are the stuff that don't have a prayer.
Right, because you don't have to, that's exactly right, you don't have to test them. So.
Yep, that's why someone like Donald Trump can be vehemently pro-life all of a sudden.
Well, people should think about who they're electing as representatives. If you look at the Houston congressional delegation, you seem to see the same kind of polarization.
Yeah, there's very little in the middle.
Name
very
the
little
most
in the middle.
Conservative Democratic Congress member from Houston. Who would that be? Would it be Gene Green? And who's the most liberal Republican member of Congress from Houston? Would it be Kevin Brady? And think of the gap between those two politically.
Yeah.
Very different from 40 years ago.
Very, very different. That's true. It is becoming more and more polarized. All right, Lee Kaplan, awesome as usual. Smicer, Kaplan, and Veselka, skv.com. Good to talk to you, sir.
Enjoyed it. Talk to you all later.
We're going to talk to you soon. All right, so when we come back, much more for you. Always 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. Make sure you check that out. Also, do want to remind you, best content here can be found over there at usdatareview.com. Have a great day. Spend it wisely right here on this station.